Hughey is the San Jose Planning Director, and she's going to talk to us about some of the changes that are being made in San Jose.
So good evening. Thank you for having me again. Rosalynn, Hughey, Interim Director for Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement. And so I know that one of the key projects that has been important to the community is the Republic Project in conjunction with the Evergreen Community College. And as you're all aware, I'm sure, that the City Council approved the land use designation change for that site from the public, quasi-public designation to neighborhood commercial community designation, and that was done last December. Since that time, the applicant has filed a PD zoning application, so this would be the next step for the project in terms of rezoning it and getting a planned development permit to move forward with effectuating the new zoning and move forward in terms of building on the site. So currently that rezoning application is under review by our planning division in consultation with Public Works and Transportation and other city departments. And as you're aware, as a part of the general plan amendment approval, the applicant was asked to conduct a community engagement process for the master plan of the entire 27 acres. And the applicant will be initiating that community workshop, community charrette process in conjunction with city staff. We've been in contact with the applicant. They are actually finalizing terms with the community college. So that process, my understanding, is near completion. And at the completion of that process, they will be ready to then start planning for the community outreach and community charrette process. So we anticipate, according to their schedule, they anticipate to hold that community charrette definitely by the end of the calendar year. So, we'll be in touch with the council member's office, working directly with her and her staff, working with the community leaders here, obviously, and the applicant in designing that community charrette. And so as that process gets underway, we'll be coming back to you, getting your ideas, and talking about what that engagement would look like. Was there any other project? I know there's another, not necessarily.
The one that's supposed to go on the ballot?
Yes, so not necessarily a project, but this is an initiative that a developer and with a group of other folks have submitted to the city, and it's called the Evergreen Senior Housing Initiative. And so the city clerk's office received this initiative and the information a few weeks ago. Since that time, the city attorney's office has actually provided the official title for the initiative, and so that process is moving forward. Our department is not directly involved thus far, and I anticipate that we will be getting, the city government, the administration, will be getting some direction from city council as this process unfolds. But basically, our understanding as the information was submitted, for the 200 acres that are currently have a land use designation of industrial. So these 200 acres are intended for employment land, so land that would be producing jobs. It's been designated for that particular use for quite some time. This initiative actually has completed a specific plan that details a development project for 910 residential units. Along with that, there is a set aside for 20% affordable housing. And the specific plan is pretty detailed. It outlines the circulation, it has urban design guidelines, talks about the amenities for the project. And so, in essence, what this initiative does is, in essence, it bypasses the current development process that is outlined in the city's general plan and takes the decision directly to the voters. And the voters being citywide, so it's just not limited to the residents here in District 8, but this would be going to the voters citywide. So that's pretty much the information we have. Like I said, we anticipate that we will be getting some direction from the City Council in terms of next steps and how they would like the administration to respond. So I unfortunately don't have more information to share with you, but I'm happy to take questions.
Just a quick question, is there precedent for that?
So the one precedent that we are aware of was undertaken in Tracy, where the particular home builder actually took a very similar initiative for senior housing, and that particular initiative did pass by the voters there. So there has been a precedent set. It is highly unusual, obviously, because land use decisions are, they rest with the local government. And that's the whole reason why the City Council have, worked with community residents throughout the city to develop our general plan. We went through that extensive process back in 2011, and so our goals are well established in that existing document.
So because it is against our general plan, and it is unusual, and it's going to the whole city, where people in Almaden probably don't really care.
Yeah.
How do we approach this? How do we?
Absolutely. So that's part of the direction that we anticipate that we will be getting from the City Council very shortly, in a couple of weeks, actually, in terms of what the response from the City Council will be and what direction they will give to the administration.
So one question is, have there been any commitment either from the city or the developer to first build the infrastructure? Because right now, the roads leading to this particular side of San Jose, they're already congested. And whatever load it's going to bring in with the new development, shouldn't there be a first commitment to build that infrastructure first before such a change is made in the building?
Yeah, so as we delve into the specific plan that was created for this initiative, it does outline the circulation for the development. It does outline a process for some type of environmental review, although we will admit that the current language in the initiative is somewhat confusing. So our understanding that there would be some type of environmental review which would take into considerations impacts such as traffic and congestion, obviously. But the initiative as it's currently written is unclear about to exactly what level of environmental analysis would be required. Because as it's set up, the initiative creates a specific plan, so the voters would be approving a specific plan, as well as a specific plan permit process. So as it's currently written, the specific plan and the project would require one level of public hearing. It's similar to what we do for our site development permits, and these applications go to director's hearing for approval, so it would not necessarily go to the City Council. But yes, we are still combing through the pages of the specific plan, getting all of the details out. So ultimately, we want to be able to provide you, the community, and really all of this, the residents of the city, at the facts of the actual specific plan, because we know lots of materials are already being distributed to voters, and there are petitions that are out there requesting signatures from voters as well.
One point I think that's important is that the development team that wants to do the end run around the City Council and the Council's growth management plans and plans for future housing also have development interests in Southern Almaden Valley and in the Coyote Valley. So if this were to be successful, it would potentially be a model that would be attempted to be applied throughout San Jose. So it really involves all of San Jose. And while this is our home, and we know the specifics of the Evergreen Industrial Campus site, this is something that can really affect the whole city. Something to point out on this is that it's land speculation. They didn't get what they wanted from the City Council, The mayor's new plan for housing has 40% affordable. They've said this will be 20%. So it's not even as good as the city's going to be moving in terms of the community benefits.
Yeah, also, Rose Herrera, our past District 8 council person, then we have Sylvia Arenas. I mean, Rose Herrera specifically stipulated to the neighborhoods here in Evergreen that she wanted to keep that, she zoned it, we made sure it was zoned industrial because of the constant influx of new housing, traffic conditions, just the bedroom community. She wanted to see some of the industry here. One time there was a thought of bringing in a private high school. So it needs to be kept that way, and I think District 8 neighbors should be the #1 voice. I can't understand how the city of San Jose can allow all the other districts to determine what happens here in Evergreen, because I wouldn't imagine us voting for something that takes place in Cupertino, Campbell. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So actually for this initiative, it's not something that the city of San Jose is allowing. So this initiative that's going to the voters is under state law. So there's actually this process is laid out. And so it's under the state law.
But wasn't it 25, 30 years ago, we had an Evergreen specific plan. A lot of
Absolutely
was put into something like
this
that.
initiative goes directly against that area development policy, and clearly it's against the vision that's outlined in our current general plan. Absolutely.
This supersedes this, right?
If this initiative is passed, it will supersede the current vision and direction in the city's general plan. Yes.
Quick question, if it's passed, is the city prepared to take legal action?
At this
On
point,
behalf of
I
the
can't,
residents.
I'm not in a position to address that. That's
Can you
something
find
that our
out?
city attorney's office
find out?
would be addressing absolutely.
Thank you.
What are the needs to preempt it? Like, I know there'll be a second step where they're gonna ask for feedback from, or probably just provide some input to the voters and educate us. But is there a way where we can go preemptively against this project?
I think the short answer to that question, it's all around community organizing, right? You are the community. This land is your neighboring land. And so I know that it's going to take a lot of community leadership, a lot of grassroots efforts, and getting actually the correct information out about what the initiative does. I think currently the facts are misleading. For example, the wording about affordable housing, it indicates that it's 20% would be set aside, but there are no guarantees that actually will be built. So none of that language is currently written into the initiative. Yes.
How about the earthquake zone? How close is it to where they're planning on moving?
So not that far away. Obviously, you all are well aware of that. I would advise all of you, particularly all of the community leaders, to the extent that you have the time. It's a very lengthy document, but the specific plan does, to the extent that it does bring up some of these environmental issues.
I was going to share that I was shopping now in yesterday, and they are getting signatures in all the shopping centers, and I asked the man for a flyer on it. He said they weren't giving out any flyers. It was just simply senior housing, and would I be willing to sign? So.
But that's misleading.
This is the flyer. This is the flyer that's been.
Those cards are being mailed out.
And it's really,
Yes.
it's wrong in everything that they're describing. It's unfair.
I mean, if you take a look even at that brochure,
Yes.
the renderings of the housing, that's not necessarily affordable housing. Those are large single-family housing units, and so it would be questionable as to how housing built at that level would be made affordable to individuals.
Major funding by Ponderosa Homes, so they have a huge influence.
Vested interest.
Yes, sir.
Couple of things. First, I came 2 minutes late, so sorry for that. But can you ask for a moment of silence for the people, the victims of the Vegas?
I'm just a guest here at the meeting.
I'm asking
You have to 7:30.
no, I'm asking if you allow a minute of silence in memory, in honor of the victims in Las Vegas, in honoring the police that attended the horrible crime. Can you ask for a moment of silence first?
Okay.
I'm asking you.
Okay,
You're the one that directs it.
so let's have a moment of silence.
Thank you. The other one, as a community leader, we have a bitter taste of what happened with the 27 acres. I think we were shortchanged. They gave us wooden pens for that land. They had no regard for us as a community or what they're trying to do with our community. So I think that's, without asking too many details, it almost looks like the way the president wants to do the policies, without, even if you're Republican, with all due respect. This is almost like a privilege. And it's not fair for us to the way they're trying to handicap us. So I need to hear the voice of everybody. The issue of Evergreen College is still not settled. And now they're going to extend to this. Not unless we participate. Not unless we are a cohesive group, we have a slight chance of turning this down. So I encourage you to continue to be, at least this forum, to continue to be educated, because we need to be educated. This is not enough for us. We don't know all the details. And they have lawyers that like to know how to go around and end up like us until almost 2 o'clock in the morning at City Hall. So please, get involved and try to continue to be a cohesive group to confront this issue. Thank you.
I have one more comment. Rosalynn, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming twice in the last 2 months, 3 months. On the Charrette, we would like to be involved in the structuring of that. On the positive side of what came out of the council meeting, who could have asked for the council directing that there be a master planning of the 27 acres? That is really great. In the public hearings and on the website of the developer, they directly discussed with the council member from District 8, the aquatic center and the fitness center. They directly discussed playing fields. They talked about the education center. They talked about doing community benefits later on. You know, pass us now and we'll do community benefits later on. And that is extremely positive going into the master planning process. But we would like to be involved in the structuring of that because not all has gone well. I don't know to the degree that you're involved in the details, but when the developer did the general plan request a year ago, March, they were to submit the initial study at the same time for the negative declaration on the EIR. They didn't submit it until June. We weren't able to have the benefit of that at the community meeting in August. After the community had spent $1,500, Sandy and Daniel, to put an ad in the paper, they tried to cancel the meeting. Your staff did not allow it to be canceled. So it's not been smooth sailing. When they did their community involvement, they had a lobbyist who wasn't listening, but they were advocating. And as soon as they weren't getting the answer they wanted, they shut down the community involvement process. So we want to have something more than a box checked off in a form for a developer community involvement. And we really want the city to be involved in structuring it. You know how when you get a consultant for an EIR, a traffic study, a sound study, you vet the person. They're working for you. So for the community outreach portion, if we really want to have it be something meaningful that takes the good action on the council for the master planning, the amenities, and try to make that reality, we're going to need some special attention and not just an outreach meeting that a developer selects the consultant and tries to achieve what they'd like to achieve. So we'd really like to be involved with you on that. Oh, something else, I've been communicating with John too. Since May, he's been trying to have the developer put up the posting on the sign. And September 6th, he asked him to do it again. So since May, the sign's still not up on the PD zoning. There's a lot of positive going on here, but there needs to be accountability on the part of the developer as well.
Absolutely. So on your first point in terms of involving the community and actually designing the community charrette, we want you involved in the process. That's critical. I mean, we as urban planners, we understand that when proposals and projects are submitted in communities that they're impacting you. And so for this particular process, we want to work hand in hand with you in doing that. Now, obviously, the applicant has an agenda that he wants to achieve. We all understand that. But at the same time, from the planning perspective and from the city perspective, we want to ensure that we are designing a process that's fair, that's open, that there is room for engagement on a number of different levels. I know that the charrette process is something that's very important for the community, and we certainly will be moving forward with that. But at the same time, we know that we want to reach as many people in the community as we can. So for some folks in the community, maybe they can't come to a community charrette. So we will be outlining perhaps some other ways of engaging the community as well. And that might, entail things from online surveys, to just coming to various community meetings like this just to get input. But yes, first and foremost, from the planning department's perspective, we want to make sure that the process is fair and that the community is actually involved in designing what that charrette would look like. So we take your comments to the heart, definitely.
How will it play in that, I have the impression that they're only talking about 12 acres, and we want to look at the whole 27. Can you address that, please?
Yes, absolutely. The commitment is for a master planning process for the entire 27 acres. That's what was agreed to. Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you so much for having me.
I have a question. I live in Evergreen as well. I wonder why there's not a website, like where we can just look at this now, like the information that you're getting for what 12 acres is. Do we have access to a website where everyone can look at that and read it? And did you make that available so that we can find that easily? Because I don't know if you put the word on it, how we can know, like, when is the next meeting? When, will we be advertising that? I'm just saying, because I don't know if we're knowledgeable enough with the information that you have. And I have one other comment. I think as a resident, it would have been nice if they had just asked the group here what they wanted to put in first, rather than come to you first. So I think that's my opinion. That I thought the charrette would occur first. And then I'm sure a lot of people would go along with what they had to offer. But it looks like it went to you first, and then it's kind of already in your court. It seems like it should have come to this group first, before going to you.
Roger, can I respond to that? This is where the developer has choices. And if the developer had chosen to act on the master plan concept first, they didn't have to file the application. They could have asked someone what else would be a good idea. But once they submit that, my understanding is that you have a legal requirement to process the application with procedures that we're not aware of. And that's a dilemma, because the developer is making the choice on the kind of involvement. That's where our concern about being involved with the charrette, this is concerning that the application was filed before the community involvement occurred.
Yeah, and I have one, I didn't finish my statement, thank you. The last comment is I was there at 2 in the morning. It was too late of a time to have this discussion of the whole process. I actually fell asleep in the audience. So I was there, I was witness to it. And I remember the mayor saying this: you're all gonna be involved. You're gonna be all involved in what we do. And I just wanted to share with you, I don't know if that's going according to proper, I'm just telling you what I think as a resident. I don't know if the mayor knows that the kid, I'm just telling you this, I don't know if Mayor Ricardo knows that we haven't had a Charrette meeting yet. Yet already in your office, you're planning to build something. It would have been very courteous, there would have been more courtesy for this fine community to have the Charrette meeting first, and then move forward to your office. Could you talk to the developer about that?
So the process that we're gonna follow, so what the applicant is required to do, and this was a conditional approval of the general plan amendment that was approved by the city council last December, was that the applicant would engage the community in the master planning process. So the applicant must do that. So before this particular rezoning application moves forward to the planning commission and to the city council for any type of action, our department is going to ensure that the applicant conducts this community engagement and holds the community charrette with the community. So that's absolutely going to be required. And so that's why, there's, at this point, there is some internal review by other city departments regarding traffic and other aspects of the project, but we are not moving forward until that community charrette is conducted.
Last comment, I know the mayor's a good man, I just wanted to be aware, and you run the department, so I think something went wrong here. And at the last meeting, another audience member said that the train had left without knowing what was going on. So I'd like the mayor to be intimately aware of this situation.
Agenda, and we're going to be having our call for new members of the steering committee in November. We need to have volunteers to step up for the steering committee. It's really not much work. It's 1 hour a month extra from this meeting. But it enables you to have input on what we present at the meetings. And so we would love to have any of you join that. So the nominations will be in November and the vote will be in December. We're also going to be upgrading our membership from $15 a year, which is what it's been since we very first started, to a whopping $20 a year next year. Also, we're instituting a brand new award. We're the Volunteer of the Year award. And we're doing that in the honor of Carol Ashman, who was one of our founding members. She was our webmaster for years. Carol gave lots of her time and effort to this organization. And unfortunately passed away last year. So we're naming that in her honor, and we're going to start taking nominations in November, and again, we're going to award that in December. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who is a member of the District 8 Community Roundtable. It can be anyone in the community. So if you know of anyone in the community, adult, child, whatever, that has really gone above and beyond and given to the community, we would love to have you recommend them for the award. So that we'll be doing next month. Okay, and so now we were supposed to have Captain Randy Schreifer, who is, I'm impressed.
Hi, thanks everyone, we're all glad to be here. I guess the captain feels it takes 5 of us to replace him. As far as who's who, my name is Lieutenant Stan McFadden. I am your late night lieutenant. Meaning I'd probably be just waking up by now, and we start at 2100, which is 9 p.m. So we go 9 p.m. until 7 a.m. Here we have Lieutenant Gregorio. He is your day shift lieutenant. And We have Sergeant Gutierrez, he's your swing shift sergeant. You have Sergeant Tomlin, he is your midnight sergeant. We have Officer Fagoni, he swings, he's your community policing officer. And we have crime prevention, Jorge Casillas. So we thought it was good to have a little bit of each shift, and because we know the concerns, some of the issues. Some are consistent with all shifts, and some are unique to each shift. I think it's important to have the sergeants here, because the sergeants are the ones that screen the calls. They're the ones that put the cops on the dots. So that's why you have your sergeants here. My understanding is Marilyn had some questions for Captain Schreifer, and he prepared a few stats. I have some of the stats that he prepared. I guess one of the topics might be crime being on the rise a little bit higher and stuff, so he pulled some stats regarding like violent crimes. So the stats he pulled, it covered homicide, aggravated assault, robbery, burglary, rape, and stolen vehicles. So from September 1st until October 1st, there are 74 reported cases of all those different types of crimes. This same time last year, same time period, the 1 month time period, for 2016 was 69 cases. It's a little bit elevated from last year. So he pulled the stats from last July and last August, with those stats being 53 and 56 in those months. So you guys have some valid concerns. There's some, slight elevation in our stats. I guess one understanding was White and Quimby with the homeless issues. I know Captain Schreifer, he went out there himself with one of our swing shift lieutenants. They contacted a couple individuals, and those individuals that have kind of made a home in that area. One of them is kind of a lookout for one of the business owners, and another one is just there. So they reached out to some additional resources on Art Nino and crime prevention to try to offer some services to these individuals. And on top of that, they're reaching out also to those businesses, so they, in hopes of deterring them from hiring the homeless help, to where they're now, setting up their shops there. And Jorge, you want to go in real quick?
Yeah.
So the kind of stuff you guys do.
So how's it going, everyone? Hope everyone's having a good night. It's a bigger crowd than I expected. So we brought the important phone numbers list for the city of San Jose. For those of you that weren't able to get one of these, I can get you one of these. The right side is the police department numbers. The left side is going to be numbers of the city of San Jose. That's going to have numbers from DOT. It's going to have numbers for code enforcement. It's going to have the homeless hotline concern number. And I think there's also animal care and all those other type of good numbers in there. So if you need one of these, let me know. We could, figure out how we can get you one of these, because I know I wasn't expecting this big of a crowd. And then we also brought out the services that we offer as a crime prevention unit, and also our neighborhood watch flyer, because one of the big things that we see is neighborhoods need to be vigilant. They need to communicate with each other. I know that we had some communication, like the lieutenant was saying, about the homeless individuals at the White and Quimby supermarkets. So if it wasn't for neighbors being proactive and neighbors communicating with us as a police department, we never would have known of that issue. So,
Did you want to talk about some of the stuff you guys did out there?
yeah. So real quick.
Can I have that so we can?
Yes, you may.
Just so we can.
Yes. So real quick, just so everybody knows what we're doing at the crime prevention unit. So we're all civilians, we're not sworn officers. But what we did is we went out to the business owners. There's a good census from the business owners that there are issues at the businesses. So don't feel that the business owners aren't understanding what's going on. They understand it, they see it, and they know there needs to be a change. So we're in the process of getting them together to figure out how we can do a business watch with them, so then they can learn how to report crime, how to have a voice as a business, and then also communicate with you as residents about the things that they might be doing or things that they can need help with, because they also need help with reporting activity, because they say they see things there, but they can't always report everything because they're not there 24 hours a day.
Yeah, just real quick, going back to that. Moving forward, some of the stuff that are being conducted is a captain is he wants to hold his business owners accountable, where they gotta clean up some of their filth around their businesses, where they're inviting, individuals into these environments. And we're gonna help them with the cleanup. We're gonna get some other resources helping them with the cleanup. He also made that location, it's a designated hotspot. And what happens when he designates an area as a hotspot, it gets pushed out to all the patrol officers as far as, these are the hotspots in your area. What we have on the night shift is, we have night officers that come in early, so they come in during swing shift officers, and they also respond with the sole duty of responding to these sorts of incidences. So I'll make sure that they're made aware of this as well. He also has put out a message where the sergeants won't be counseling calls in those areas, whether it be transient, abandoned vehicles, whatever you guys are calling in those areas, there will be an officer responding. Any questions on homeless as we continue? Go ahead.
So what is the timeline for that cleanup in the businesses? Maybe when is it going to start, and what is the anticipated end date? When can we expect to see results of that cleanup?
Since it's a lot of moving parts as far as the city, the county, and crime prevention, Captain Streeter has already started where they've identified the people. He did want to tell you guys that the people they contacted, they didn't have warrants, they weren't criminals, they're just homeless individuals. It started with them being offered services as far as temporary housing and different stuff like that through our email. That's just really holding businesses accountable. So, hey, stop letting this garbage just build and build and build around your business. But it's ongoing right now. It's already started. And it's going to continue until it's cleaned up.
So I got one question and one statement. So the question is, with your cleanup, will it involve code enforcement? And my statement would be is that so we reach out to the business in that shopping plaza, which is the known hotspot. And there's this Chinese dim sum place, which is like causing all this trash. And it's a known spot back in the alley of that business where people would go and dump their trash. So we reach out to that business, and then right after that talk, they went and retaliate against the resident right behind that alley by cutting off the tree. So what step do we take next? Because it seems like they're sending a message directly to the resident of retaliation. So what do we do next?
Well, we have a very hard stance on retaliation because we know when citizens are living in fear, they're unlikely to report incidences. So absolutely make sure you contact Captain Streeter or Lieutenant Legoro works day shift, and he can push individuals out there and attack that issue right when it happens. But you did the right thing, keep doing the right thing, we will absolutely stop that from happening.
And what are the border enforcement authorities?
Oh yeah, they're absolutely involved.
I have a question. I was the homeowner that they broke my trees. I have a video when it happened. So who could I call so that they can see the video? As a matter of fact, I have it on my phone, but I have it at home when it actually happened. Because at 9:02.
Okay, so you have a couple options. Is you can email it to us directly, or we can send an officer out there to collect the video.
Okay, you would send somebody to collect the video of the shoot.
Okay. Can you arrange for them to get that information?
We have time.
Oh. Okay, make sure you meet with us after this meeting, and we'll follow up with that tonight.
Officer, so first of all, I want to thank all of you for your service. I have relatives that are retired and active, police and military, so
thank you.
You have all my respect, 100%. Second, as a kindergarten teacher at Laurelwood and a father of 2 children, I'm amazed how these folks could set up shop in public neighborhoods, creeks, etc. The families of the children, of my students and my own children, are afraid in their own neighborhoods. This is their neighborhood. They shouldn't be afraid to explore and do the things we did when we were little. Go out to the creek. I've been here since '69, so we used to have crawdad. So back then, if you remember those days, it was fun in a sense. There shouldn't be people living down there. Now, I went to the cleanup, DA, Thompson Creek, and I don't even want to say, even on video, how disgusting it was. And so intimidating, not for myself, I could take care of myself, but for other folks that were there. And they were trying to do the right thing, and there was people trying to intimidate them, pit bulls chained to a tent so that you can't get close. Please make this a priority. These people are, not to me, but to other folks, pretty scary. And I don't know them. I don't think they're from our neighborhood. I don't know why they're here. And get them the help. And if they don't want the help, then they need to just get out. Because if I set up a tent in front of your house, sir, I wouldn't be there for a minute. You'd have me off your property, right? You're not going to tolerate that. So you have all our support. A minute and a half. But you have all our support. Whatever we can do for you, you let us know so that you could do your job. We're not going to get in your way. You're not going to see anybody from here arguing with you or being uncooperative. We're going to do everything you want us to do.
No videos.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yes, obviously this gentleman is right on. And the reason why I know is because I've done those encampment cleanups. And where we're done, we usually have to get rid of our boots, bleach them out. I mean, it's a whole different environment. It's almost like a community within a community where there are the vicious dogs. There are the people with warrants. There are the people that aren't very respectful towards law enforcement or, for anyone else for that matter. So I'm glad Sergeant Tallman is here. Now, he is not the organizer of these cleanups, but he participates in these cleanups and knows a little bit more background on the cleanups. But Art Nino is a contact for cleanups. And when you know those locations where there's creeks in different areas, please push that information to us, because that's how they establish where they're going to handle the future cleanups. But I'll Rich talk real quick.
The only thing I can really add to it right now is just that they are doing an average of a cleanup a week, which consists of 4 to 5 days a week, every week. So they are making it a priority. They are going out there, but the problem that you have is if you clean up one area, they just move to the next. And so it is being looked at. They are trying to do something with it. It's not like they're just ignoring it. I mean, it may appear that way when you continue to see, those issues. The other problem that you have too is that if it's on private property, then you have to get the private property owner involved in trying to deal with the homeless issue. So, as Lieutenant McFadden said, Art Nino, who's with the city, is the best contact. He is the person that I deal with. He gets a hold of me and tells me, we're going to have a cleanup on these dates and these locations, and then I set up the officers to go with them. So he generally will set cleanups up based on the amount of complaints that gets in an area. So if you have something,
all of you call.
Yeah. So if you have issues going on where it's continual,
The more noise you make, the better.
yeah, it'll stack up. He'll get to a point where there's more complaints in this area. He's got to deal with that one first, and then he'll move to this one. And I feel bad because it is. He's just bouncing back and forth on these. They just, and just driving over here tonight when I went by the shopping center over there were 2 shopping carts sitting there just stuffed full of stuff. And there's a lot, like the lieutenant said, there's lots of moving parts. And trying to get all different kinds of people involved is what it takes. But it starts with you guys. You make those complaints, and it just starts getting the numbers up so we can say, okay, this is the next place that we need to take care of.
Real quick, sir, and I'll get to you. So when we say call, we're not saying call the police all the time. So we're going to push this out on email.
We're gonna put it on our.
So there's a bunch of numbers and resources, but we have things on here like code enforcement.
If you're a member and you're paid your dues, you'll get a copy.
When you do, you get a copy. There's a homeless hotline, homeless helpline.
It's $15, that's it.
So when this gets pushed out, call these numbers. And ma'am, for the tree that got cut down, you can call, ma'am.
Oh, yeah.
For your tree that got cut down, you can call 311 and they can probably take that report over the phone. And then somebody can come pick it up. It might be like a community service officer, not a police officer. Are you all familiar with community service officers and here they are, what they do? They just wear white cars and wear the blue shirts, but they have patches similar to ours. That way we're not drawing a police officer from just gathering evidence and we can go out there and take care of some of the things you're telling us about. I like to say that we brought up some memories when we talked about going to the creeks, because that's what I did as a youth. And yes, I'm scared for my children, I'm scared for myself right now. It's a little creepy. You never know what you're coming on, and you pass a bush, and needles, knives, whatever. So it is definitely scary down there, and I'd like to clean it up. But remember that the land is either San Jose's, the water districts, the counties. So when we call these numbers, the problems may not come directly towards San Jose because it's the water district's land. They're going to clean it up. We can't just go clean up and take property on somebody else's land. And it runs into jurisdiction issues. And sometimes we're there as security, but just remember if we kick somebody out, whatever property we take, we're going to have to put up for safekeeping. So it's a real long, drawn-out process, and it's not just simply come in, clean it up, kick people out, move on to the next one. So it is a big undertaking. Sir?
In our community, we have experienced robberies, vandalism, mail being stolen, packages being stolen, screws in the parks that are not safe to take the children and the youth. Has there been any studies in which vigilant cameras that you use in the streets, downtown, or whatever, to be also installed in the communities such as ours? Because there are not that many arteries that to lead, and you can trace the movement late at night or whenever the peak of these intrusions are happening, to make your job easier, to feel more secure. And if necessary, that we have to pay, whether it's $50, $100 a year or a month, I don't know, to increase that security with the high technology. I'd like to know if there's any such studies and what are the possibilities of implementing them.
So I can talk about that because I've actually helped with purchasing cameras for the police department. Also the city purchasing cameras, if you know Plateau Royal Park, which is at King and the Key, there's a skateboard park there. They're putting cameras out there, kind of as a test project. They're putting 1 or 2 cameras out there. They are expensive. Those cameras are like $10,000 to $15,000 each. And then you also have storage responsibility. You're supposed to store all the video for at least a year. So the city is doing it. The police department is doing it. It's a slow process, and everything's at least a year out because you have to budget for it, and then you have to put it out for bid, and then acquire them and then use them. So the city is Plateau Royal Park. That's their pilot project. And if it works, I would push for your council member. Hey, let's put it in our parks. So get up your council member, say, hey, I know we're going out and just in King Road, in the Key at Plateau Royal, and make sure that she keeps aware of the use of them, and if it's working. That information from the park should flow to the police department because that camera is specifically going to be purchased by the city. The cameras that the police department is purchasing, we're hopefully going to purchase some within the next 6 months. These are cameras that we move around. You'll see them. They're not like stealthy or surveillance cameras. They're just kind of put out in the open. If you look up, you'll see it. Same type of cameras we use when the Super Bowl was in town. We use them downtown, move them around, and they are a great asset, and we push for them. but there's always the aspect of Big Brother. And so if you look back at things we've tried to purchase or have purchased, like the armored vehicle, which was an MRAP, or if you look at, you talk about technology, you talk about drones, which is something that made the news, and it has to get approved by the city council, what we're going to do with it and how we purchase it. Everyone aware of what I'm saying? Making sense? Drones, MRAP, big armored car that was made famous by the riots in Ferguson. We acquired one, but got rid of it at the time. But we do have a drone, and it has very limited use. It's with our bomb unit. But, so these cameras, if we have 100 of them throughout the city, we don't have really any right now. We have like 3 that we're hoping we're going to purchase. That's all going to go before city council. And if you push your council person to purchase them and utilize them, because with more cameras, there are more eyes, and we can catch people, like you said. There's very few avenues out of this area. If we see a crime occurring, we can catch them as they're leaving. And if they can be monitored by dispatch or somebody else, and they can direct units into the area. And there's a lot of those cameras have a lot of different technology. They can do acoustics for gunshot location. Of course, the video, they can target specific locations looking for movement. If we think there's crime going on in an area that only occurs late at night and there's really nobody there, you can pinpoint the cameras to send a page or a text or an email of, hey, there's movement in this area, so what's going on. So we call that a force multiplier. It just kind of adds to our ability to fight crime. That answer your question? Thank you. Coming back, blue shirt.
My question is, how do you allocate police resources when you've got more than one crime going on, when maybe you have a higher priority than another one? Well, we've got established that we're all kind of scared around here, and there's things that happen that scare us. And then we don't have a response from the police, and something may continue on for hours, and if yet there's a higher priority, we're a bunch of us are still really scared. Why are there not other resources coming in from other areas? Can you go on to that?
So when you mean resources, you mean within the city of San Jose? Police officers. So as far as, call it triaging the calls and what's important is, number one, protection of a person, violence towards them, murder, assaults, robberies. You respond to those first. You want to protect life. In this area, you do have limited resources. At nighttime, 4 or 5 officers for this particular district, which is District 4, which resides within District 8, the council district. During swing shift hours, which are 3 to 1, there's more officers out here. We have what's called priority dispatching. So if all the officers in this area are utilized already and they're on calls where they can't free off because they're calls of violence and they're tending to victims or trying to follow up on an event, there's officers that are available somewhere else in the city, no matter how far away they are, they're going to get tasked with coming over here. So it's kind of an automatic process. The computer system, call comes in, computer system sees that there's no units available here. It designates the closest units based on GPS in the car. So that's technology being used, and they get dispatched to come into the area. If it's a lower level, and I'm not sure about the types of things you're talking about, where maybe just somebody sneaking around the neighborhood late at night.
So what I'm talking about is a home directly across the street from ours had an open house, they had it staged, it was empty, and a bunch of 20-year-olds came in and broke into the house, partying it up, smashed the walls and everything, and then did circles and banged into somebody's yard, and I mean, it was really scary. And then when that all happened and they crashed into each other, they scattered like cockroaches and directed themselves out of the neighborhood like cockroaches. I mean, it was very scary. We called several times. It went on from 11 o'clock and it crashed about 2:15 a.m. There was a priority. Somebody was getting shot at or being shot elsewhere, but we felt somewhat under siege. That's all. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
When did that happen?
About a month ago. And the next morning when they did show up, the community officers came, and then the other officers came,
and asked the homeowners who then were called and showed up and said, we're surprised no one called the cops. Well, we did, and, yeah, no, I mean, we were scared. So, it's like, we pay good money here, our homes are worth decent amounts of money, we're good people, and I don't see this happening in other areas. Well, let's say other cities.
So as you know, we have gone through a staffing crisis, right? Our numbers are on the rise. So our numbers are on the rise. But when you say you're under siege because this is happening across the street, you have to understand that we're under siege because we're swamped by calls, and probably there are priority calls. And what I can tell you to do is to keep calling and giving specific updates. If you call back, just don't call, hey, what's the ETA of the police? Tell us what's going on, and show us that things are escalating. Because we all know, we've been on all the calls at nighttime. If you don't tend to them, they get worse and worse and worse.
Right.
And then sometimes they turn violent. Besides just destroying the property of the homeowner that's trying to sell the house, it turns violent.
That was the fear. The fear was that if one of the homeowners who were all, several of us knew what was going on, one of us had come outside and had any type of confrontation. Forget it. I know somebody had, I know there were weapons. So anyway, that's
So, like the previous question about resources, if they're available in the city, they get dispatched over here. So I can say if you're giving timely updates and saying, hey, this is getting worse, and people aren't getting dispatched because we're wiped out. If you look at the news, there's a lot of violence that does go on. There's been a lot of recent homicides, unfortunately. And because we do have a high clearing rate on our homicides, because we do good front-end investigations, we dedicate officers to doing a good investigation on a homicide or a violent crime, so we can follow up on it and solve the crime and get those people off the streets. So keep calling, give the update, give the address. If we have people available, they will come. So I don't want you to feel like we're abandoning you, because we are there. I know.
And we did all of that, and so I appreciate you telling us what we did, and as things happen. So anything else that we can do for you guys?
Okay, thank you very much. We really appreciate you coming and answering the questions. I know that everybody has more questions, it's just we have more agenda.
And we'll still be here. If you want to come talk to us afterwards, we'll still be here.
Great, thank you.
Who's going to give us an update on what's going on in the state?
Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to be back in San Jose. And by that, what I mean is that we just finished our 9 months in legislative session. And so if you saw me in the last 9 months, it was probably on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at an event, running from one event to another, because we're only here for those 3 days, and we're in Sacramento Monday through Thursday. So it's hard to come to neighborhood meetings that tend to be Monday through Thursday. So it feels great to be back and reconnecting with so many of the neighborhood groups that I had the chance to meet with over the last couple of years, and certainly the ones in my council district that I've known for many years. And so it's been quite an experience in Sacramento. It was a very productive year. A lot is going on. A lot of bills have reached the governor's desk that he's continuing to go through in signing bills, vetoing some of them. But there are a number of things I believe that were accomplished this year that would be considered, I think, big ticket items in any given year of any state legislature. We were able to get a package of housing bills passed that the governor signed, and that's going to bring resources for affordable housing, as well as streamlining for creating housing. Now, that doesn't impact us as much because, as you can probably imagine, San Jose actually builds housing. A lot of other jurisdictions don't, and then we have to build all the housing for the valley. The streamlining bill will help encourage some of the other jurisdictions, the other cities in Silicon Valley, to do their part and actually build housing, so the responsibility doesn't just fall on San Jose and Oakland and San Francisco, the big cities that are willing to do it, but all along the peninsula, East Bay, here in South Bay, require some of them to actually do their responsibility in creating housing. And there are going to be some more funds, some more resources as well to help in transitional housing, getting homeless off the street, which of course we know has been a major issue, but a lot of that's going to be targeted towards veterans and families and those that have needs to get them off the street and find long-term solutions to the housing crisis. Some other aspects of the state budget, we were able to create, and I don't think any other state, certainly not of this amount, has a reserve budget. We have a reserve budget of about $10 billion in our reserves, knowing that, and this is something I give a lot of credit to our governor, because he had over the last few years, had to really drag some of the legislators along to do it. But it's $10 billion. We expect that by next year we can have it as high as $12 to $14 billion in reserves. What does that mean? It means that when the next recession hits, the first thing we do, our first reaction doesn't have to be to cut. There are always some cuts with the recession, but we'll have some resources to be able to withstand certainly a short-term recession to some extent. But at least, like most companies and most cities, San Jose does have a reserve fund. Most cities will have the ability to have a reserve fund equal the equivalent of 10 to 15% of the state budget. So that's something that we did as part of our budget, while at the same time increasing funding for K-12. Not enough, and I know that any school board members are here would agree that not enough, but we're trying our best to get more money into the local jurisdictions, including community college. For our CSUs and UCs, increasing funding to increase the number of slots for our students. And for the first time ever, the UCs on 5 of their campuses put a cap on the number of out-of-state and out-of-country students that get admission. So the priority will increase for California residents. We subsidize it for our students. They should continue to have the higher priority. The UCs are a separate. And so I think that was a lot of progress and a lot of pressure put on UC, because for those that aren't aware, the UC Regents, the UC is actually a separate entity in the California Constitution. So we can tell the CSUs what to do, we can tell the community college, this is your budget, this is what you'd like to do. We can't do that with UCs. So let's just say there was a lot of pressure put on the UCs for them to, first of all, control their costs, put more money into instruction, less into administration, and to put that cap in place. So a couple other things that we were able to accomplish. One is the California Disclose Act. Now, if anyone remembers the election last year, not only for the assembly race, but for city council races, you name it, your mailbox probably got filled with a lot of junk mail, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you had radio ads, this, that, and the other. And not all of the mail, it didn't always say Ash Kalra for this or Sylvia Arenas for that. Some of it were from committees that you couldn't even identify who was paying for it. So we can't do anything right now about money coming in to our electoral system, because there's a Supreme Court case, Citizens v. United, that equated money and corporate money for spending for political purposes as free speech. I disagree with that opinion, but I'm not a Supreme Court justice. So in the meantime, until we can get that changed, one thing we can do is transparency. So with the California Disclose Act, it requires the 3 top funders to be very clearly labeled. And whether it's a TV ad, it will be shown. If it's a mailer, it has to be in bold print who the top 3 funders. Not Californians for sunshine, but actually who's paying for it. So that, I think, it's the first of its kind in the nation. And so there was some progress made on that front. Another bill that we just passed on the last day of the legislative session a couple weeks ago. And sorry if I'm talking fast, there's a lot of stuff I want to try to cover, and I know that you're short on time. SB 17, which again, for the first time, will require pharmaceutical companies to actually be transparent when they're raising costs of the drugs. So they actually have to say, hey, not only that they're going to raise costs, give advance notice, but a justification for it as well. And so that was not easy to get. It's interesting, the political games played, because when that first, I've been supporting that bill for a long time, for months. When it first came up for a vote in the Assembly, it already passed the Senate. We need 41 votes to pass it. We have 80 members. So we need a simple majority to pass it. You think, obviously we're going to get a simple majority to pass it. Not so obvious. Because guess who has a lot of power in Sacramento? The drug companies, right? And so we were barely struggling to 32 votes, 33, 34. Had to bring it back the next day. And a lot of behind closed doors, like, hey, you got to vote for this. I mean, this is a consumer rights issue and all that. So guess what happens when it gets to 41? It gets to 41, and as soon as it hits 41, it jumps to 60 people in favor. Because nobody wants to be against it, right? That's the kind of stuff we deal with in Sacramento, where it's really challenging because you have certain special interests that just have so many. Oil industry is one of them. We saw that with the cap and trade votes. Drug companies, the banking industry. I was trying to get a bill to put some caps on some of the predatory lending. I wasn't able to get that through committee, all the way through the committee to the Assembly floor, because the banking industry has a lot of influence over that. So a lot of this kind of inside baseball up there has to do with the levers that are being kind of pushed and pulled based upon a variety of interests, right? And so that's why this year it seems like a lot was done, considering that environment. A lot was accomplished. As far as my role, so I was very fortunate earlier this year to be appointed chair of the Aging and Long-Term Care Committee. And so I'm currently the chair of the State Assembly Aging and Long-Term Care Committee. And when people ask, why would you want, because I actually asked to do it. People are like, why'd you ask to do that? Because if any of you know anything about long-term care, it's in crisis. And it's been in crisis for a long time. We don't have the money to pay for everyone that needs long-term care. And our senior population is increasing year by year, so it's a daunting issue. But that's part of why I wanted to be in that role. I wanted to at least try to come to some solutions as to what we do about it. And so, although this is considered like the off time from our legislative cycle, I'm holding 3 committee hearings around the state. One we just actually heard in San Jose on long-term care financing. The next one is later this month on housing affordability for seniors in San Diego. And then one is in November in LA. That has to do with the federal impacts on our ability to fund health care and long-term care for seniors. Although the Affordable Care Act has survived one more round, the reality is that the current budget being proposed by the federal government would still be devastating to our healthcare delivery system. And so we want to make sure that we are at least prepared going into the next calendar year as to what we might have to do, whether it be a legislative fix, a budget fix, to make sure that everyone is made whole, but particularly our seniors, who of course, so many are living paycheck, or not paycheck, social security check to social security check, or disability check to disability check, and any increase to their pharmaceutical costs or medical care comes from somewhere. And it's usually food, rent, or some other quality of life issue beyond that. So, we're trying our best. I'm trying certainly my best to be an advocate for seniors, being advocate for those in long-term care because they need it. And there hasn't been as strong of a voice in Sacramento, so I'm hoping to continue to advocate. I'm also on the committees for housing, labor, judiciary, and privacy and consumer protection. A number of issues around their privacy, consumer protection. In fact, we'll make sure that we get the roundtable information. We're trying to set up a time to do a senior scam stopper event because we know that seniors tend to be the most heavily abused when it comes to online scams and what have you. But part of the role of privacy and consumer protection is just that, making sure that consumers are protected, especially with the onslaught of calls you get and all the online marketing that occurs. And we saw most recently with the Equifax breach, and our Attorney General is working as well for protocols on that. And I mentioned the Housing Committee, so I was very happy to be part of a small group of Assembly members that really advocated for housing funds this year, because we can't wait any longer. I have a total of 10 bills that have reached the governor's desk. And so just to give you a sense of the legislative process, we have the bicameral system. So we have our Senate, Jim Bell's our senator, and then we have our state assembly. 40 senators, 80 assembly members. I represent about half of San Jose, including this area here, downtown, east side. I live over in the Eatonville area that Redlands now. And so a bill first gets introduced by a legislator. I started the year introducing 17 bills. Then it goes through committees on the assembly side. The same thing happens on the Senate side, you just reverse it. Goes through committees on the assembly side, goes through appropriations, which is what do you call it? The money, right? they have the purse strings, and they look at the budget impacts. If it makes it through appropriations, it goes to the floor of the assembly, has to get through the floor of the assembly, and do it all over again on the Senate side. Committees, appropriations, Senate vote. If the Senate amends or changes the bill in any substantive way, it's got to come back to the assembly side for what's called concurrence. Basically, the assembly has to say, okay, we're fine with your changes, but you have to have this whole assembly vote on it again. Then it would go to the governor's desk. So out of my 17 bills, 2 of them we intentionally made what's called 2-year bills. So we extended the time of it because we needed to talk more to stakeholders and the governor's office and the state departments to work on them. 4 of them got held up, but that means it did not make it through all the committees. 3 of them were held on assembly appropriations, and so we're going to continue to work on them over the next year. 2 of them have to do with senior and aging issues, so I was disappointed, but we're going to continue to work on them. 1 got held up on the Senate side. That was a cosmetic labeling bill that we're going to continue to work on. The good news is that one of them that was held up on the assembly side actually got incorporated into what's called a budget trailer bill. The short story to that is it is going to become law. It has to do with our environmental protection. And so even though my name won't be on it, I really don't care because the intent of the bill will come to pass, and it'll be something that will be helpful in terms of our environmental protection. Now, what that leaves is basically 10 bills. 5 of my bills have been signed by the governor. 2 were signed today. 5 total have been signed by the governor. There are 5 more that are awaiting governor's signature. If all 10 are signed into law, that's more bills than the previous legislator got signed into law in the past 2 years. So I'm very proud of my team because I definitely don't do it alone. I have a great staff that works really hard on the legislative process, as well as the community and stakeholders that have helped. There's a bunch of bills. I don't want to take up time on all of them. You can read summaries on them. A couple I'll mention. One has to do with annuities. So you get an annuity with the idea that when you're older, you can draw on it. Sometimes things happen. Maybe you have a medical emergency or a housing situation. Or you say, you know what, I want that cash now, I want to go on cruises. Whatever. But you have the right to be able to cash them out. The problem is that under current law, the insurance company can sit on it. So let's say September 1st, you say, I'd like to cash out my annuity, I have some emergency going on. November comes around, December, January the next year, they still haven't cashed it out. Because they're earning interest on it, and they wait until the interest rate is advantageous to them to release it. So this bill that was signed by the governor gives them 45 days to release the money to the consumer. So I'm very happy about that one because that's a pure consumer rights. It's your money. You're asking for it back. You pay the penalties for cashing it out, so you're already kind of being punished already for cashing it out. You should be able to get that money on your timeline, not the insurance company's timeline. Another bill signed by the governor today is AB 646. That is a bill that came about when I was walking the streets after the floods here in San Jose, and I was talking to some of the renters that this is a month later. In some cases, the landlord had never even come to visit because the landlords had flood insurance. They're covered. The renter's property was destroyed, and they're clearing out the place and all that, I didn't realize this until that moment when I was talking to some of the tenants and some of the families that were affected, that they had no idea they lived in a flood zone because there's no requirement to tell a tenant. And so this bill requires landlords to, if they know, to inform tenants that they live in a flood zone. We worked, initially the realtors had some liability concerns, we worked with them, they were fantastic, they ended up pulling all their opposition and being very helpful, and essentially most landlords know they live in a flood zone because their mortgage requires them to get flood insurance, or in some other way they have information. Basically, if you have knowledge you live in a flood zone, all you gotta do is check a box on the lease document. Then the renter knows they can do whatever they want with that information. If they want to try to get some kind of supplemental insurance, I think for renters it can be costly at times, but at least they have that option. Some of the tenants that live in the Rock Springs area, they lived on the second floor, they had a carport on the first floor, so all the stuff that was in the carport was damaged, the car and a bunch of property. Well, if they knew they were in a flood zone, maybe they won't put their photo albums in the carport area or other things of value. They might not, they can at least have that knowledge and the ability to have a plan. So that was signed into law today by the governor as well. And so it's pretty amazing that in such a short period of time to be able to have, state law, just from, in some cases, ideas I came up with, or constituents or other folks came to me and said, hey, we have an idea about A, B, and C. We would really like you to look into it. And within a matter of months, the governor signs it into law. And so it feels like, at least in Sacramento, you can actually still get things done. It's a gratifying feeling, but I know I wouldn't be there if it weren't for you, if it weren't for the constituents that gave me the privilege to serve there. And so I'm very grateful for that. And so, happy to take questions. Yes, sir.
Yes.
1 minute left. Yes, sir.
The land of Evergreen Valley College was with state public education funds. In 2005, the administration looked at that and they found that conditions on land placed by that funding prohibits private development. Yet, we're in meetings here and people are going full out developing on the land. You were in a camp in a debate. You committed to have a state audit. And why has that not been started, sir?
Well, I continue to hold my position that I don't believe that there should have been development there. We don't have jurisdiction over that land use decision.
Right. I'm sorry, misunderstand. As an assembly person, you have a right as a legislator to ask for a state audit. That's what we asked you to do. Please, are you going to ask for a state audit to actually come in, because this city is going development using state public funds. That, in fact, in 2005, they admitted that state bonds were used, and those records have been lost or destroyed. So where's the audit that you committed to do to all of us?
When I, over the past couple months, because I have had inquiries into it, we're trying to determine, because this is the way it works when it comes to a state audit, because we have what's called an audit committee. And the audit committee has to approve an audit to be done, right? And so I don't know if you've seen more recently, there was an audit in the Allen Rock School District. There was an audit of a nonprofit called 4Cs in North San Jose. And so I have asked my staff to look into how we go about what options we have in terms of asking for an audit, because that is something that you're right, that I continue to, I'm opposed to the decision that was made. Now, being opposed to the decision that was made and having the ability to do an audit, that's what we're trying to determine if that rises to the level of an audit based upon disagreeing with the decision or not. If you have further information, I don't know about the 2005 bond.
Yes, your office and working with your staff.
Yeah.
You have full details of the whole issue. And that's even before you came to that debate.
Yeah.
So all we're asking is not to go look at it. All you have to do is write an email to the auditor's office to request the audit. That's all you have to do. Do we have the written information?
It requires, yeah. And so why don't we do this? When we set up a meeting with you and anyone else you want in there, and let's talk about because I just finished my session 2 weeks ago, right? And so I'm back now. And so let's set up a meeting sometime as soon as possible with you and anyone else you want. Let me have a chance to review all the information because I haven't had a chance to since we've been in session 9 months. And that will give me an opportunity to at least sit down with you. And because it requires more than just a simple one-sentence request, I think you have to have more depth to what the audit is. So let's talk about what that audit would entail. And let me also find out from my staff will inquire with the audit committee as to what has been the ordinary practice of audits of this nature.
Sorry. So you committed to doing an audit, so I don't understand why you're backpedaling.
I'm not backing on doing the audit. What I was saying is I'm going to meet with you right now to figure out what that request would be. Because it's more than just a one sentence, we want an audit done. There's got to be more depth to the request. So when the Owl Rock audit was done, when the Four Seas audit was done, there was much more depth to what the request was. So let me find out more as to what these audit requests entail. And then, but I'm happy to meet with you next week, week after. Now that I'm back, let me at least read through the document that's been submitted, and I want to inquire. I already asked my staff about the audit process. Let me find out as it pertains to this particular type of audit, because not everything. Let me find out what we can audit, what we can in terms of what the questions are.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take it off. But like I said, we'll meet sometime in the next 2 weeks. Whoever you want there in the meeting, I'll have time to review the information and make it go forward. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Councilperson.
So, good evening, everyone. I'm Sylvia Arenas. I'm the councilwoman for this district. Came by to give you a bit of an update in terms of what we're doing. And the first one I wanted to talk about is this initiative that I believe Rosalynn from our planning department came in and already spoke about. But I just wanted to make sure that, to let you know that we are on this initiative. And today I submitted a memo asking our city staff to do due diligence in terms of research on the impact, the fiscal impact, the environment impact, the traffic impact, and much more. You can have access to this memo as of Tuesday next week, or I can make copies of it and send it to you so you can see what we've written in. So it's in conjunction with our mayor. And just to let you know, we're in this phase where we're trying to learn what this document is all about. And as we continue to read, the more we're astonished, the more we're appalled, because it's really going to circumvent our general plan. It's going to create an impact here in Evergreen. And so I just want to let you know that we have our finger on the pulse in terms of trying to figure out what this is all about. And so in a couple of weeks, or between this meeting and your next meeting, I would be interested in actually recruiting some of you, if you're interested and you have the availability, to speak to other residents or other neighbors about this. Because it's very misleading. I don't know if has anybody received the mailers? Yes. Okay. Yes. So it looks really noble, and it looks, I think it looks great. If I didn't know anything about it, I would say, yes, let's do this, of course. I'm gonna support veterans, I'm gonna support our seniors in our community, because they deserve that. But it's very misleading, and so we have to create some truth not only within our community here in Evergreen, but outside, because as you know, this is a citywide initiative. So everybody else in the city of San Jose will get to vote on what happens in District 8. So
when is that vote?
in June.
Okay.
Yes, so if they gather the 32,000 signatures, they can put this initiative on the ballot in June.
So that's not moved up to March like you're talking about?
What's moved up?
The voting date. They're moving the voting date up 3 months. So
Primary.
in 2 years. I think that doesn't start until that's a different year.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I wasn't aware that. So everything's in place as usual. Primaries in June, generals in November. So if they're ready, they'll do it in June. If not, they'll put it in the general election. So they have two options, two opportunities to put this on the ballot. Okay, and the other thing that I hope that Rosalynn spoke about, and it was actually the original intent for her to be here, is to talk about the Evergreen College development. And so I've actually been meeting with Robert Rees, with Sandy, and with Wes, your land use subcommittee, to talk about how we're going to honor our community in terms of the process and your involvement in it. In this particular development, and the master plan that is yet to be developed, and we don't know what all those elements will be. We only know a little bit about what 12 of those 27 acres will look like. So we've been meeting, and I hear your concerns. I heard them when Harry Freitas was still our planning department. Unfortunately, he left us, so he went to the county, and this transition caused a little bit of delay, but Rosalynn has been really receptive and diligent about staying on track. And so she said she would honor, and I hope she said this to the group, that she would honor Harry's commitment to this charrette or public process involvement, because I know that prior to Harry and Rosalynn being involved and me being at City Council, I think there, on that developer side, there was a lack of respect in terms and a lack of involvement from our community. So we're going to try to fix that as well as we can, so we have that commitment from planning to make sure that you are all involved and informed. And the last update that I want to give you is about our neighborhood association formation. So we've been, David Cortese and I have been making rounds around our district and having neighborhood meetings, and we actually invite our captains. We just had a loss in our captain. Captain Kim moved on, but we had Captain Shriver, and he's been excellent. And so we invite our captain, we invite our code enforcement, or we invite crime prevention, and we talk to the neighbors about the issues that concern them. And we do this with a couple of intentions. One is that we know that when there is a neighborhood association, people are looking out for one another, right? And so that alone reduces crime. But an organized effort and an organized and unified voice does count a lot when you're interacting with city services or requesting to improve your particular neighborhood. And so I'm really happy to announce that there is a new neighborhood association, and it's called Twin Creeks. Yeah. They've had like 3 name changes. Okay, so this is their third name change. It started at Everdale and it moved on to something else, and now it's Twin Creeks. So this association was born out of the concern over at Thompson Creek and the homeless encampments that are down there, and so we've been working in conjunction with the water district to make sure that that's clean. I know there's some folks like the Coyasa that went out there and helped us clean that creek, and it's just a constant cleanup because folks continue to go back to that creek. And so we've actually adopted it and have formalized an agreement with the water district, so they really facilitate access and help us with picking up all the garbage. We have 4 other neighborhood associations that are in process, and I see Maria, who's here, and we talked about Aborn area, and so I encourage you that if your neighborhood has an issue that unifies you with others, to come forward and let us know if we can help. There's a variety of reasons to do that. One is we can facilitate the relationship and the information to code enforcement, but we can also provide some grants if you become a neighborhood association. So if you wanted to, so this particular association that just signed their bylaws about a week ago, they hope to do a community garden in this one area that gets typically dumped on. So, and they're gonna apply for a grant, right? So that's what they would like to do. That's how you transform a neighborhood. That's how you change and you make those shifts so people stop dumping in those particular areas that they're used to.
So is there a listing of those neighborhood associations, or, I mean, they must be all over the place. Is there any kind of?
Great idea. I think our former Vice Mayor, Rose, and used to do that on her newsletter, and I think it's something that we can pick up again, right, Patrick? And then that way people know of a contact at the very least, so that they, in case they live in that particular neighborhood. I think that's a great idea. Thank you. So we'll work on that and have that for our next newsletter. The last thing I just wanted to let you know is if you haven't downloaded, please download the My San Jose app. You can report graffiti, you can report illegal dumping, you can report abandoned cars, just click the button. So, and I hear a lot of people are using it and making it really effective use of their time. And the last thing that I wanted to say is invite everybody to our day in the park. I'm continuing that tradition that our former Vice Mayor established, and I think even before her, is our Fall Family Fest is a day in the park over at Lake Cunningham. Please join us in celebrating. I think a lot of the times we work really hard to improve our neighborhoods, and we organize and we have meetings, but we also need to break bread with one another, whether it's, you know, over coffee or some yummy hamburgers that our fire department is going to cook up that day. I would love to interact with you in a different environment. Oh, and we have Creekside. We have Twin Creeks representation here, so I'm really happy to see that. I'm really happy to see that because this is the format for District 8 Roundtable. It's for other neighborhood associations to feed in here and for you all to facilitate this conversation and access to city resources and greater resources that Assemblymember Kalra offers, and our senator that represents this area and others. So I'm really happy to see that. And actually, Elaine, could you stand? I want to recognize Elaine. Elaine has been such a trooper. She has adopted this creek, Thompson Creek on the other side. I know that we're going to move next to the other side of Thompson Creek, Mr. Collazo, and soon enough we'll cover the whole thing. But thank you so much. Let's give her a round of applause. And she's been just so wonderful, and at times she's been a one-man army, a one-woman army, and she is a force to be reckoned with. So I appreciate all your efforts. Thank you for being there for our community, even when everybody is a little tired and doesn't want to pick up that litter.
I'd just like to say one thing. If anybody would really like to talk to me about homeless people, I would really hate these things. I'd just like to say one thing. If anybody really wants to talk about homeless people, I would really like to talk to you. I went from really disliking them and trying to get them out of the creek to realizing that they have nowhere to go. And I have kind of slowly but surely sucked them all in. And now we have a regular routine, and every Wednesday they get a burrito and they are cleaning the creek with me. So we have to humanize these people. They have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to go to the bathroom, you know, and that's it. You know, how would all of us feel if we were in their places? So we have to start looking at them differently and how we can fix this problem. And be mean to them and trying to move them places where they can't go anyway, and just throwing them on the streets. So where's a better place for them? So I think the city really needs to start pushing that and figure this out, because it's not right. It is not right.
Some homeless people are homeless by their choice. You know, I have like tried my best to treat them, give them money and everything, you know. But some of them are not more motivated by drugs and liquor, rather than being fed. And I tried my best, you know, I know all they want is money so they can buy drugs and liquor and whatever they want to do.
I think that there's sometimes, these are the kinds of conversations we need to have. There's different types of people on the street, some that are there on their own accord and prefer not to follow the rules that you've just mentioned. And there's folks who are just one paycheck away, right? And when I sat on the school board, unfortunately, I got to hear some of those experiences where moms are, and I'll tell you, this is one of the things that I'm concerned about, and I love to focus and maybe have your help in the upcoming year, is our homeless moms and children. Because they're not out there the same way that you see most other folks. They're that invisible homeless community that's couch surfing, that's in their car sleeping overnight, and they usually don't ask for that much help because otherwise they'll have their children taken away from them. So this is a very vulnerable community that needs our support. I don't know how we'll do that, but it would be a great conversation for all of us to have. And if you like, I think you offered this space as an opportunity to talk about homelessness. I think you brought Phil Mastrocola from the Winter Faith last month. And I think it's a great conversation to continue to have. And I just love for you to continue to think about the different folks who are out there, some by choice maybe, some just one paycheck away, and you know we have a lot of working families in this community that have either a fixed income or just have different circumstances. But we need an answer, and the city of San Jose is focused on providing some quick relief, which is, and I'll talk a little bit about tiny homes, but in the long run, the real solution is to have more affordable housing. And so that's what we're focusing on. They're mostly being developed in the downtown corridor, and I think we approved, I think it was 3, right, Patrick? If my memory serves me right. So there's about 3 affordable housing developments that are focused in the downtown area and that have what they call wraparound services. So they have counselors on site and other folks who can help support our unhoused population and transition them into another track, if you will. So the other quick solution that actually our housing department had was tiny homes. And there's kind of a misconception about what a tiny home is. And Assemblymember Nora Campos pushed forward a bill, I forget what the number is, but it allowed for these structures to be developed rather quickly and not to follow CEQA and all those very rigorous and long processes that we have within the city. And there are these come on here, Patrick, because you know the dimensions. He knows the dimensions, but they're really meant for one person and for a very temporary time. So the folks who would go into these tiny homes have actually demonstrated that they have a plan for another housing long-term option. So these are folks that are just living, you know, unfortunately, they're not the folks that are living on a creek. They're folks that want to have a hand up and are looking for that opportunity, and they just need a place to rest their head for a couple of months or so that they can actually get that job, keep going to those meetings, or and then ultimately secure different kinds of housing. But they're only, if they were developed, they would only be developed for I think 4 years, and because this bill expires, if you will, in 4 years, and so they're a very temporary solution to this problem that we have that is aggravated by our housing crisis.
So the house is just for 4 years? I'm not clear what you mean.
Yeah, so the actual tiny home is is only meant to be in that particular spot. And I'll have Patrick come over here and tell us the dimensions for a maximum of 4 years.
$80,000 each. The county says 1.3 million for 30 days.
So they're
80,000 each.
Oh, sure. The dimension is similar. Oh yeah, that's from Garrett, the council member's chief of staff. It's nice to see many of you again. Sure. Patrick McGarrett, the council member's chief of staff. It's really nice to see most of you again. Some of you are new. The dimensions are similar to a dorm room in size. I'm actually forgetting the exact. They're prefabricated. So some of the costs are some pieces, some of the costs are others. I'd be happy to do the math with you, but it's not back of the envelope math, unfortunately. But a lot of that cost is retained, including the pilot only lasts that long, but the city would still have the prefabricated homes afterwards. So this is a first step, and it was designed that the state doesn't allow you to skip ahead like this. So the piece that's temporary is figuring out. San Jose was lucky enough to get a pilot project to try to develop these. So the pilot will expire, and it was important because everybody wanted to commit to the community that there'd be an automatic cutoff, especially if it wasn't working. And if it somehow turns into a really amazing thing that everybody supports, it could theoretically be extended by the state legislature.
So if you have questions for the councilwoman, we have about 15 more minutes.
And these tiny homes would we're not one of the districts, unfortunately, we're not one of the districts that has viable locations because we first thought about having them on city-owned property because they would just facilitate everything, make things real easy for us, or easier. But we don't really have a viable location here in District 8. And so now we're looking for other public agency land, and we've sent letters to folks like the county and the VTA and the colleges, the college. So there's a couple of entities in this community that actually could apply. But optimally, we would like to see these tiny homes near a transit-friendly corridor. So, so not back here where it's hard for people to get on the bus and find access to their convenience store and maybe to a school or other things that they need to connect to. So it would primarily be on a corridor that has a lot of transit options. And like I said, District 8 is not flagged for one, but we haven't given up the hope that we can find a place, and especially if our public agency sisters and brothers help us out in maybe lending that space for the years that we'll have those tiny homes, which I said will be very minimal time. So there's a lot to do in between now and those tiny home placements. For right now, there's only 3 districts that are flagged to actually have them built. And Robert, you probably know this, right? Yes. So one is downtown, right?
Which?
Do you know the locations? The tiny homes?
Alamein, District 2, Gordon, and they weren't making Evergreen at all.
No, there weren't any in District 8, and which makes me really sad because I think we all need to lend a helping hand, and if we have something that's accessible to our unhoused community, that we can offer that opportunity. But that's not happening just yet. We're still hoping that there's something viable. So that's it for me. Oh. Did I talk about David Park? I did. So that's it for me. If you have any questions, I'll open it up.
I have one because you're addressing a certain group of homeless people, but not all homeless people are going to fit into that category, because they are different. There's so many different ones. You have the mentally ill ones that you're not dealing with. You have the ones that have been living in Thompson Creek for over 6 years. That's their home. So we have to figure out ways to deal with the different varieties of people. They're not all drug addicts, okay? There's people in that creek that they have jobs, okay? They get dressed every day and they go to work, and they've been falling on unfortunate times for themselves that, they can't get themselves picked up right now, and they need that job, they need somewhere, and they're saying to me, I wish I had somewhere to take a shower. I went out and bought little garbage bags for them today, because they're asking me, can we have garbage bags? So they know they have nowhere to go to the bathroom. So that's the immediate thing that we need to address. Winter's coming. We need to take care of these people.
Absolutely. That's
So
it.
come up with that solution, and I'll help you with it, okay?
You come up with a solution for homelessness, and I will help you.
Me and Frank have it, okay? We can debate
You have it?
things, okay?
Actually, there's different strategies for our different populations, and our housing department is working really hard to address them in the interim, long-term, and the different levels, the different types, right? There's working poor, there's folks who are mentally ill, who have maybe dual diagnosis, who are addicts and also have a mental health issue. There's so much, so many families and individuals out there, so we don't have an answer for everything, but we're really trying. And I would encourage you, Marilyn, if that's okay, I'll send what the mayor has as his 15-point plan for housing in his commitment to the varied populations that are in our city.
So, right, so how do I know which association my home belongs to, and if there isn't one, how do we start one? Is there any information I can get from somewhere?
That's music to my ears, absolutely. So, Lauren, have you introduced yourself? Have you had the opportunity? So Lauren has just come on board.
Hi, everybody.
Do you want to just do a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. I'm usually pretty loud, but I'll use the mic just in case. I'm Lauren. I'm new to the Councilwoman's office. I'm really excited to be here. I presented at this meeting before, actually. I used to do community outreach for PG&E, so I'm happy to be back in a different capacity, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you and helping form some neighborhood associations so that we can have a great line of communication, and you guys can have a nice community organization as well.
So you can talk to Lauren, or you can call our office, and
we can tell you what is the association that's closest to you, but we'll take Sandy's recommendation of listing all of the associations that have been formed and the ones that are in the making. But we'll just have to get the approval of those folks who are in there to list a phone number and all that. Robert.
I just wanted to let you know that what you said was correct. Rosalynn fully embraced the charrette, fully embraced our involvement in structuring the charrette, which was different than her prior comments about outreach. And we talked about the positiveness of the council's motion for master planning the 27 acres and the positiveness of the community benefits that the developer had discussed and published on the webpage. We had a little bit of a reality check with how it went before. We had a little bit of a reality check with how it went before, which wasn't that as good as it could have been, and stressed that the city should be calling the shots with respect to the administration of the charrette, to look at it in a similar way when they retain someone to do an EIR, etc. We're making progress. Thank you for your help with that.
I was going to do an add-on. She also said that she also indicated that we'd be having the charrette in January if the developer didn't do it pretty quick, because she was very concerned about the charrette not happening in the middle of the holidays when things are so busy. So I'm really hoping that this is already October, that we sort of look seriously at January, because I think November and December are very, very busy months to be doing a charrette. Some people go out of the country in the month of December because they go somewhere else. So I'm also hopeful that we can do some forward planning and we can do it well enough so that we can include everybody.
Great, so Rosalynn has been really open. We've been meeting with her, relaying some of the input that you've given us in your meetings and your follow-up emails. So I will also follow up with her on that and ask her to kind of flag January for that.
That would be great.
And not holidays.
Yeah.
So I have two questions. First, the vanilla market has white and Quimby, we met with the captain, and he's done a great job helping with the, put the spotlight on there and keeping the crime down. But there's a lot of blight in that shopping area. And what is the city's responsibility in that regard?
I'm going to hand this over to Patrick because when we had coffee hours, I think it was a week ago, you spent a great deal of time with some of the members who came forward and had the same concerns. And so he's done a bit of research and follow-up with that.
Nice to meet you. I had an opportunity to talk to Andy and Maria about it, and I know that they have more information here today for our office. Manila Market is one of the most complicated kind of shopping areas in Evergreen because it got subdivided years and years ago. So there's 7 different property owners in what looks like one shopping center. It does create a challenge. For blight things, code enforcement is the main city agency. So what we're doing is starting to work with neighbors like Andy, Maria, and hopefully yourself to start using code enforcement effectively to keep Manila Market in line. The only good news there is on that piece is that when there's been a complaint, and there haven't been enough actually, because when there has been a complaint, according to the records, those 7 owners have actually fixed the complaint within the allotted amount of time. So that's how the city regulates that, is a complaint comes in, they go out and check it, and they send a letter saying you have to get this back up to code. And the only good news is that so far, that's worked when it's gone in. They have fixed the thing at the time. So our hope is that, as I know a lot of folks in this community have concerns about this, that code enforcement can kind of really get directed tightly to work on this. Since this was brought to the office, we've been working with code enforcement. We actually took it from the regular code enforcement officer up to the supervisor to make sure the supervisor knew that this particular area required a higher level of scrutiny and response. We've also connected the supervisor with the new captain, and the new captain, police captain, and the supervisor in code enforcement are working directly together to make sure that they're covering all those bases. I know Andy's also flagged that the liquor license at Manila Market has some things when they got it in the first place. There were some responsibilities they had to keep. That certainly is something that we can look at, and we're as an office, we're researching what the options are there. But and then separately, I think that the homeless response team and the police department have already gotten out to increase enforcement there. So a lot of things with the city, unfortunately, because of how it's cut into pieces, each department has responsibility to it. So the role of the council office is working with you guys to keep each piece of the city focused and working together on your behalf. If there's a lever that, if there's a mallet we're not throwing, we're more than happy to throw that for you. The other thing is my business card, I have a lot of copies of it, and the phone number for a lot of city services is on the back, including the number to report blight, and that's the number when you're at Manila Market. If you see anything on the ground, like if you see anything that's out, even if it's small, I would really encourage you to circle back to call every single one of them in each time, because we can really hold them accountable if the community reports directly to code enforcement all of those issues. And it doesn't take very long. It can be a 30-second phone call.
So you want to use that app?
Yes, the My San Jose app definitely works as well. And the nice thing about that is that it keeps a bunch of different things in the same place. So if you see graffiti and you see illegal dumping, you can report both of those back to back real quickly, and that will, if you're worried about being stuck on a hold or things like that, it kind of cuts to the chase where you don't have to be on the phone call. I also wanted to acknowledge quickly that Chris Rotana from the mayor's office is here. I don't know if Chris spoke yet, but Chris is really heavily involved in the rollout of My San Jose app. They deserve a lot of credit for their work. He's a great resource, and I know he's been also working with folks in your neighborhood. And I know also Andy's looking at forming, it's a little unclear whether it'd be a traditional neighborhood association group, but because it's right at the corner of neighborhoods, so it doesn't, this is an issue that affects a few neighborhoods, but if you guys organize together, that's more effective for holding all the city departments accountable and giving us good information, so.
Yeah, so just one basic question to the Manila Market is, those 3 commercial lots were identified for urban village development, and they're all in Horizon 3, I guess. Yeah. And not approved for Horizon 3. Actually, for District 8, I please saw only one approved project. Who is pushing the agenda to actually do something better in those lots? And what was the plan for urban village development there? Like say it's 7 lots there,
That is such a big question. The urban villages, when they get designated Horizon 3, it implies that it's supposed to be done generally after the urban villages get done in Horizon 1 and Horizon 2.
Yeah.
So, no, just like I'm trying to get there. So, what that means is that sometime in the future, if the community right there and also the landowners want to be able to create higher density urban villages or like, but there's also a million other things about Evergreen, as you guys know, and you guys already had a conversation about a bunch of other not great projects that are going on right now. All of the rules that govern what you're supposed to be able to build in this community because of the traffic would also govern things there. So urban villages in the city is like this huge kind of monster issue that the city's trying to push forward, that the council's working really hard to push forward. But then adding on all of the traffic issues in Evergreen, I'm just saying that those are colors on the map, but that's a 20-year question.
Yeah, I think the number of units, housing units were like 260. I think it's going to have commercial area also, but I think some presence of actual residents there in that place, along with commercial activity, would possibly kind of scare away the bad elements from this place. Yeah. Just like the Evergreen Village area, this normal public coming here and having like farmers market here, I think this area is far more better than what we are seeing at Quimby and White.
Way far more.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of things we can do to work together on improvements. I wouldn't focus on urban villages personally because that designation is so far from. Sorry.
I need to step outside.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can talk about it.
We're so sorry. We need to make sure that we don't have a brown violation. So.
The mayor's office, at each of the council offices, you can't have a private meeting, so we can't accidentally meet with the mayor on something that he's meeting with other council members on.
Yeah, and so he represents the mayor, and it would create a violation for us. So we've got. So
I've actually mentioned. Sure.
I want to go back to the Mounds Shopping Center, the code enforcement issue. I took it upon myself to go and take all the pictures, and I have prepared a binder with all the pictures and the violations that we have. And then I went to the reporter's office and got the grand list of the two main offenders. Because they always tell me that they don't know who the owners are. But I'm providing all the information so that hopefully code enforcement can help the neighborhood. But I have everything here. And I prepare a copy for you and a copy for you.
So I would just like to encourage those folks who are here about the Aborn Amon Shopping Center and the quality of life issues that's created because of just lack of maintenance and attractive places for folks who are doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Say it again? Oh, Quimby, I'm sorry, Quimby, yeah, you're absolutely right. I would encourage you to connect with Andy so that we can then form a neighborhood association about that. It's a very specific issue that we need to make sure that we involve our code enforcement unit, and if we need to kick it up a notch, we'll kick it up a notch. And but we have to have a concentrated effort. So we need folks, more than one. Maria, you've been such a wonderful advocate. I just encourage you to have a separate meeting than this to actually really talk about that. And so I think I offered you last time an opportunity to have the same format where our captain comes in, our crime prevention comes in, they give you the stats about what the neighborhood is dealing with, and really we form kind of an informal community policing plan based on your priorities. So I would encourage you to please set that up with Patrick. to do that. And anybody else in any other areas that may not be the one around Long, but in your respective neighborhoods, and that drive maybe a different type of issue for you. So that was the last question. I want to make sure that I comply with what the president has given me. I'm happy to answer a question after the meeting.
Jim Zito has an announcement coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, President. Just real quick, my name is Jim Zito. I'm president of the Evergreen Elementary School Board. There's a lot going on at the school district presently and in the near future. This next meeting is a week from today, and one of the things that the board will be voting on is budget stabilization, which means that we need to plug a $6 million hole in our budget that's projected for 3 years out. Part of that is the ponderance of closing up to 3 schools. And so there's a strong resistance from the board members to do that. We want to make sure the community has say in the matter and has enough voice for their concerns. But there's a lot of push from other groups to say, just close them so we can save money and we can afford to do bargaining, because we have contracts that are up for bargaining and for renewal and so on. So I strongly urge that anybody who has kids in the district or who is interested in school finance issues, that maybe they can just come and at least listen at the next board meeting next Thursday. We'd love to get your feedback as well.
What time is the board meeting?
The board meeting is public session at 6:30 at the board chambers, which is at Quimby Oak Middle School. There's the board chambers there, right off of Quimby Road. Okay. The other thing is I want to double underscore what the council member's office has been saying, and also what planning's been saying, the mayor's office has been saying about what is being trying to be sold to us as keeping families together. Okay. It very well may undo 5 years worth of work that many, many people have worked very, very hard to put in place to protect Evergreen with the Evergreen specific plan, the Evergreen development policy, and with how they're planning to put housing and transit centers in Evergreen. This is going to undo all of it, and it's going to try to exempt itself from many of the requirements that were put in place to mitigate traffic, school, and other impacts that it has. So it looks good, but I really suggest that we talk to our neighbors outside of District 8, because as the council member mentioned, it is a citywide initiative, and somebody in another district can say, that's great, it's going to happen in Evergreen, so we don't care, right? But we also know that this could impact and cause a domino effect with the Almaden Reserve, the downtown plan, and so on. This is a attempt by developers to circumvent the general plan. We all know it, unfortunately, to circumvent the general plan process. And if this succeeds, it's going to be really a difficult thing to turn around. So just out of principle, we need to have the general plan followed, and it will have impact on schools as well. So there's a lot going on with the school district. We're seeing declining enrollment, which means less dollars in our budget to do the things that we need to do. So your input is greatly appreciated. And we also thank you for all your support of the schools all these years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That wraps it up, and I appreciate you all coming. I want to thank the San Jose PD and Assemblyman Ash Kalra for coming, and Councilwoman Sylvia Arenas. So thank you all.